Hello, and thank you so much for tuning into my podcast. My name is Kara, and I'm a holistic health practitioner for both people and pets. After working for years in the conventional medicine field, I realized that while our lifespans may be getting longer, our health spans are rapidly shrinking. And when it comes to our pets, both their length and quality of life are decreasing. When I turned to functional medicine and a more holistic approach to health, I saw dramatic improvements for my pets, myself, and my patients. Join me each week as I merge natural health for people and pets by focusing on the root cause of disease and applying raw, real remedies that you can use to improve overall wellness for every member of your family, including the furry ones. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Raw Remedies, where we talk about natural health for both people and pets. This week, I am incredibly honored to introduce Dr. Conor Brady as my guest. I first came across Dr. Conor a few years ago when I was actually looking for resources to help my dog who had been suffering from chronic pancreatitis. And although his lovely Irish accent was the first thing that caught my attention, it was quickly followed by his extraordinary knowledge about gut health. He holds a doctorate in the effects of nutrition on behavior and gut morphology of mammals, and he is also the author of Feeding Dogs, which if you're watching, I have next to me and I'll hold up in a minute, but this is the top-rated manual on canine nutrition on Amazon. And as a matter of fact, his section in this book on pancreatitis was the first time I had read anything that suggested that a diet high in carbs was a main contributor of pancreatitis in dogs, which I was already convinced of because of what I was seeing with my own dog, but man, it was nice to have some validation. So Dr. Conor, thank you so much for joining me today.
No, I'm delighted to be here, Cara. Thanks very much. As I said at the start there when I jumped on, just delighted to have the attention. So many people want to talk about this now, which is great compared to, 10 years ago when there wouldn't have been a podcast place for you anywhere. So it's good because nutrition is absolutely pivotal to physical health. And then people really, certainly pet owners don't give it enough credence as to how much it affects mental health, But if I could just come straight out of the traps with this example, even if you don't have kids, we've all been to birthday parties with kids. And invariably, up until probably recently, but invariably, some poor food is served at birthday parties. That's just part of the game. You get jellies and you get chocolates and you get cake and you get sugary drinks and all the stuff that...
Candy and pop.
That's it. Yep. Yeah, it's coming at you. And, it's all the stuff you wish that your mum and dad would have in the house all the time, but they struggle. They refuse to bring in as much as they can. And there's a reason for that. And whatever about the physical consequences of eating these diets long term, as we're all starting to feel the effects of it, it's the mental effects. So when you're at a birthday party with kids, and I am now, I've got a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old here, and when the parties happen and, some of the jellies and stuff get served, you're not thinking about doing homework with these kids 15 minutes later. You're trying to get them out the door and then lock the door and then put the blinds down, and then we just let them do their Zoomies. And because they're killing each other, so there is an instant behavioral response to colours and preservatives and crap food. And we know that if we have a poor quality meal, we know that as much as we all like to eat a bit of takeaway now and again, if you hit the wrong one, you just feel like utter junk an hour or two later. And that is because you have consumed junk food. And so it's for no other reason. You don't feel like junk after you have a meal you've prepared yourself. It just doesn't happen. You feel satiated and kind of content. So, we ignore these things, but we can see it in the kids. And so it's the very same with kibble pet food. If you look at some, when I say kibble, I mean, I'm not picking on them all. There's plenty of, I'm sure, ultra processed foods. Some are better than others, and that's just going to be the way. But, I'm talking about the high cereal pet foods that are promoted by the vets. That's a lot of carbohydrates. It's poor quality vitamins and minerals. It's poor quality fats. It's ultra processed food, the same stuff that we're putting into kids. And how can we expect to train a dog on that food? If you're looking for the best out of his head mentally, that is not the diet that you would do it with. That is the diet that you would lock the dog outside and let him do his Zoomies after it. It's not one to focus on. And there is now, thankfully, plenty of science to back that up.
Yeah. And it's so funny because I think that it's not only in the pet food world, but also just for people, like the kind of the movement of awareness is starting. And
yeah,
I'm not sure if you heard about this or watched a documentary that just came out a couple of weeks ago called Fed a Lie, and it's all about seed oils.
Oh, no.
I would watch it. It's like 40 minutes long, 45 minutes long. You can find it on YouTube. It's called Fed a Lie. And, I have been seeing for years now a trend where people are living longer, sure, but they are sicker younger. And, I work at the hospital, I work in the ICU, and I've worked in the emergency department. And all I see now are people in their 40s, 50s. A lot of them are very, very overweight. But even the ones who are, normal weight or like a moderate, maybe a little bit overweight, they are so metabolically unhealthy
Oh
and
yeah,
so inflamed on a cellular level that these people are coming in with massive strokes at age 40, heart attacks at age 50, blood clots, chronic
yeah.
diseases, autoimmune diseases, and it
Autoimmune
is
disease.
all related to the food
Yeah,
that we eat. And
yeah.
then on the other hand, you see kids nowadays, the level of allergies is through the roof.
Yeah.
The amount of diagnoses of ADD, ADHD is through the roof,
Oh
and it is
yeah,
all related to the
yeah.
crap we're putting in our food. The food dyes, I'm so glad that you brought that up. Food dyes aren't they banned in some countries?
Oh
Why
yeah.
are we
Well,
still using them
it
in America?
depends. There's such a variation of food dyes. I mean, you can color your products with beet juice and beet powder, and that'll put a seriously nice pink or purple
Yeah.
tinge to your product, and it's not going to have too much of a downstream effect on it. You can use dark green algae. You can use all sorts of things. But
Yeah.
then you can also use synthetics, numbers that you wouldn't feed rats, you wouldn't feed the mother-in-law, and yet these are going into kids' streets. And so the fact that these are permitted in some countries and banned in Europe is pretty good on their food colorants. And there's always the example that's thrown around recently where Canada does not permit this and the US does permit these food colorants. It's like, why does the US permit it when Europe doesn't and Canada doesn't? How is this one of the food ingredients that goes in? But I mean, it's such a vast subject, and people, they don't understand that it's when it comes to behavior. Like I saw one of these memes on Instagram, and it's like, I'm feeling really depressed. I think I'll go get a pill from the doctor to get a pick me up. And her friend just says to her, have you been sleeping much? No. Are you eating right? No. Have you been socializing? No. Are you stressed at work? Like, are you happy at work? No. Are you doing this? No. Are you doing this? No. Have you gone for a walk? No. Have you? And it's bumping. Are you in the gym? Are you trying to do anything? And it's just like, no, 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 no. And she's like, yeah, God, I don't know what's wrong with you. It's like, it's not just one thing that we can suddenly think, oh, maybe I'll take some, CBD and that'll take the edge off me a little bit. And it's like, that's not how it works. When it comes to general well-being and solid behavior and calmness, in the mind, it is coming from omega-3s, it's coming from vitamins and minerals, it's enough protein, it's less of the bad stuff. So, there is, chemical preservatives that napalm your gut flora. Your gut flora is the other half of the conversation that we won't even get to today. I mean, all your happy head compounds come from your gut. We used to say 90% of your serotonin. It's virtually 100% of your serotonin because the little guys down there via the vagus nerve say, release a bit of serotonin, brain, but they release most of it. So you've got all your serotonin come from there. We just found out they produce tryptophan, which is one of the amino acids that people talk about. If you take this protein, you'll suddenly feel wonderful. It's not the case at all. Certainly in people that are eating enough tryptophan, I don't need to take more tryptophan. So they produce all these GABA and butyrates and all these really important head compounds. So when you've got an upset gut flora, a really, pathogenic gut flora, so you haven't been feeding them with all these rich, colourful, nice foods that we know we should be eating. You've just been eating this ultra-processed garbage, the same meal every day, growing your little gardens, just growing the wrong weeds. You are not getting your happy head compounds. So like way beyond just talking about the colours, like, oh, my food is all brown, so that's a good thing. His dry food is brown. It's like, we're not even talking about colorants anymore. We're talking about everything.
Everything.
There is 10, 15, 20 things on this diagram, and you just ticking one or two with a supplement is not the way to do it. The way to do it is get all the garbage out with one fell swoop, which is junk food, and get all the good stiff stuff in one fell swoop, which is real food. Be it you make it yourself or buy in some, fresh or lightly cooked products, whatever, but real food products that you'd nearly eat yourself. If you just do those two steps, you have tackled so much of that diagram that you don't need to spend ages looking at studies and seeing which supplement do I take. Jack them all up, put all the good things in and take all the bad stuff out would be the approach. There you go. I saved us 45 minutes and I got straight to the end,
Well, but I want to zoom in on something you said, which is feed them what you would feed yourself.
Yeah.
The problem, I think, is that what people are eating now is upwards of 70 to 80% processed crap. And
yeah.
I see this at work all the time. So I want to give you an example. I feel like you would agree with me if I said dry roasted almonds are healthy for you. Almonds are good for
Yeah,
you.
I like almonds.
Okay. Well, I was at
Yeah.
work the other day and so somebody came around with a box and there were little packages of almonds. And I was like, oh my gosh, for once a snack at work that I can eat. So I grabbed a bag, I take it back to my office. I flip the bag over expecting to see almonds as the only ingredient.
You would think
It
so.
was almonds and safflower oil.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
why
Why?
can't you just give me a bag of almonds? And
They-
now all of a sudden, this food that should just be giving me some nice, healthy fats and
oh
some
yeah.
healthy omegas and some
Yeah.
vitamin E is covered in this extremely concentrated, probably oxidized seed oil. And now
That's
this
right.
is no longer healthy.
They
So
put the oil.
it's-
They put
it's
the
so
oil in the
hard.
almond. They put the oil in the almond so the flavor will stick to the almond. Because otherwise, it's a dry husk. Actually, almonds are good for you, but the dry roasting bit turns that into a questionable almond because once you get protein up above a certain temperature, this is a problem with ultra processing. If you can denature protein, what once was good protein, you can put a lot of heat on it, and it turns the protein into something that's hard to digest. Think overcooking that piece of steak or turning an egg from clear to white.
A charred
that's
husk.
that's called a Maillard reaction. That's protein bonding to sugar, and that actually makes the thing harder to digest. Not in the egg's case, in the meat's case. So if you ultra process almonds with high temperature and seed oils, you are now ultra processing, high temperature cooking the seed oil, which is high in omega-6, and that's going to oxidize with the heat. And then you're ultra processing the protein into a thing that's hard to digest, which shifts the gut flora, and it's not a positive experience at all. It increases the Aegis, Maillard reaction particles on the thing. All the things that we're saying, don't eat too much ultra processed protein. And so you can turn a good food really bad really quick. There's great companies in California where they're making the almonds where they actually have a natural smoking process on the almond. And I actually bought, they shipped them to here actually. The really nice dude owns this farm, small farm, and he sells them by the £5. It's like, what am I going to do with £5 of almonds? It was just this enormous sack. We were just eating them for a year. They were probably stale and rancid by the end of it. But they tasted pretty nice. But, you suddenly realize how used to the smoky almonds you get in a bar where they're kind of like a powder on the outside of them. I mean, they're delicious, But that stuff is not the good stuff on the outside.
No.
Whereas his smoked almonds just had were smoked in a smoker with a bit of salt on it, and that was it. And so that's nothing wrong with that.
You'll have to share the name with me because I'm in California. I wonder how local he is to me.
How are you doing with the fires? It looks pretty.
Yeah. The photos are sad. So we're recording this right now at the beginning of January, and there's some really bad forest fires. And I wouldn't even call them forest fires anymore, just straight up fires, and down in Palisades near LA. It's about 8 hours from me, so I can't, and just the way what's it called? Like the way
air,
the breeze blows or whatever.
Wind. Yeah,
it's not coming up California. It's going down toward Texas. So I have no fallout here, but my gosh, I've been watching the videos and it's really heartbreaking.
No, yeah, it's a real thing. I mean, bloody hell. It's anyway. What can you do? Oh, there's lots you can do. I'm sure they'll learn their lesson at some stage. I'm struck with this. There was a trainer called Turrid Rugas, a behaviourist, who she was a real big deal to us. I was a guide dog trainer for years, and we used to have to look at Turrid's work. She did Calming Signals was one of her books and videos. Really old school videos. They're about 50 years old. They're pretty dated now, but you still find them on YouTube. And she was one of the first people to use body language to communicate with dogs. It was a very cool lady from Sweden, Turrid Rugas, still alive. And she rang me one day and she said, Conor, I followed your dog. I had this German Shepherd, and this lady will be top of the heap for dog trainers 20 years ago. There was nobody bigger. And she'd been training dogs all her life and trying to make a difference in some troubled dogs' lives all her life, and never thought about diet until I came along and I started chatting to her. I started going up and doing a few lectures with them and that kind of stuff. And then her trainer started kind of chatting to, and we got friends. Anyway, Turrid rang me and she said, we had a German Shepherd, and the German Shepherd came out of the car, and you could see he was just all tense. He was on his toes and he was flighty and he was looking around, and the slightest, he was very reactive, the slightest noise and anything overhead, and you wouldn't go patting this dog too quick. And this man was saying, look, I adore this dog, but his behavior has gone completely awful, and we've tried everything at the vets, all the pharmacological decisions, but this dog was not a happy dog. And she said, I don't know what struck me. I was thinking what way I was going to approach this dog, and then she said, you know what, I'm just going to give him a big meal. I asked what he was eating. He was eating kibble. I had just been talking to her, and she goes, I'll just try Connor's approach. So I gave the dog a big bowl full of meat and a little bit of veg, meat and organ and bone and a bit of veg, the stuff that most of us are recommending to feed the dogs. And the dog ate its fill, and then within about 5 minutes walked over to where they were talking, the two adults, and the dog just walks over and curls up and goes to sleep. And the man goes, bloody hell, you're a miracle worker. How did you do that? And she goes, that was just the food. He's got a full belly, and so he's satiated. And that the dopamine floods in and he'll go to sleep. So this could have been one of the first times this dog had a good full belly, and not with carbohydrates that are rapidly digested. And then you're all cranky 15 minutes later because your insulin's flooding through looking for more sugar. So anyway, the more dramatic bit of it was when the very next day, she said, they came for a second visit and the dog hopped out of the car, didn't even need to be on the lead. He was just totally calm. A helicopter went off, a car backfired, and he was just comes up to turn, wagging his tail. It was like, she said, her words, complete transformation in 24 hours. Now, people might think that's absolute. There's just no way. There's no way it can be that quick. But a solid meal, when how cranky you get when you're hungry, it's like a solid meal is a really important thing. And it can have if you are nutrient deficient, and I'm not just talking like B complex and stuff, which dry food is notoriously poor in and fresh food is quite high in. But I mean, a zinc deficiency causes negative behavior. A magnesium deficiency, these are vitamins and minerals that are hard to get into dry food. They use poor versions of those vitamins and minerals in dry food. They use zinc oxide, which dogs can't absorb very well, magnesium oxide, copper sulfate. A deficiency in any one of those minerals is going to cause negative behavioral issues. So which one is your dog experiencing? Well, as opposed to going on and supplementing with vitamins and minerals and nonsense, it's no, just put in food that's rich in all of that. And so you jack it all up at the same time. And you can have quick turnarounds. Of one more quick example. Brisbane Guide Dogs. I was over in Australia and I was setting up the guide dog puppy program over there. And I meet Chris Lane, this phenomenal CEO, this lady who was running Brisbane Guide Dogs. And we're talking about food. I was doing lectures on nutrition, and she goes, come over here. I'm after changing 220 dogs, working dogs, from dry to raw food. And my veterinary bills have fallen by, guess how much?
Oh my God, 80%.
80% is exactly right. You've been reading my book. That is, I'm glad. That's it. You have passed the test. 82% are falling in our veterinary bills. Now, that would be for orthopedics and recurring skin, ear and gut conditions, but that's a lion's share of your budget if you're a charity like a guide dog organization. And then you use all that money to put more dogs on the road and help more people. So a massive, massive win. But it was what the trainer said. The trainer said small comments like, the dogs are calmer. They're still Egypts. I don't know if you use the word over there, Egypt, but they're still silly food, like a 1-year-old Labrador, like an absolute dork of a dog. And he says they're still great fun. They still have all that spirit, but they're calmer and they can take their lessons. And so you can imagine after that birthday party, giving them crap food trying to do their homework, or giving them good food and trying to do their homework. So you can fuel this kind of quick response, a very significant improvement. So if I had a hyperactive dog, if I was a behaviorist and I'm going around seeing clients, I think the number one thing, as opposed to trying to train the bad behavior out of the dog, he might be just in need of some bits and pieces. So you need to get the foundation right first. So what you would do is you get some good food going into that dog, watch the crappy treats and all the other things that can upset it. Just get the good food in there, and then come back and think about assessing the dog in 2 or 3 weeks. But you got to get that foundation right to make sure what you're seeing there isn't some A, nutritional related, or B, pain related. And the way you check the pain bit, by the way, which has nothing to do with what we're talking about today, but the way you check the pain bit is to give a little bit of pain relief. So if your dog has really poor behavior, before you start trying to train the poor behavior at him, you've got to first make sure nutritional foundation is correct. That's the most important. And the second thing is he in any pain? And I know your vet might have looked at the dog, but there's underlying things that you don't, that we can't see and determine. And physios are another step towards that. But what you can do is you can use paracetamol in dogs. Now, we are not allowed to prescribe paracetamol as non-vets, but it is the world's most effective pain relief. And it absolutely works for a lot of different types of pain. There's 4 or 5 different types of pain, but it works for joint pain and a few other things. So you can actually, yourself and the vet, work together and put some pain relief into the dog. And if the dog's behavior improves when he's on the pain relief, well, then you know he's in pain. It doesn't tell you what's wrong. It just gives you, it's like training a dog that's in pain is unfair. The dog has a sore back. Like, I'm not a bad dog. I have a sore back. And I just told you, don't jump near me. And if you jump near me, little man, I'm going to give you a proper fright, because, and particularly if you jump at me from behind and I don't see you coming, like my old dog who had terrible hip dysplasia, was painful on her. And she was such a gem for the first 14 years of her life. And for the last year, she was the snarky dog on a lead. And I'm saying, like, guys, get your dogs under control here. We're walking on a street. There's no need for your dog to be off the lead. She's a big German Shepherd with sore back legs, you know. And suddenly I was the guy with the snarky dog. And it was so unfair to see my beautiful dog have that reputation then, because she was just she was on her walk and she just didn't. She was an old person that did not want to be bothered by some young fool hopping off her, you know. So that's my two. I like getting those 2 points out when we start talking about behavior before you even think about training, you know.
Yeah, that's a good point. I agree. I think nutrition is the foundation of everything. I mean, it's the foundation just for physical health. It's the foundation for mental health. It's the foundation for, you know, for longevity. It's really is just, it's everything. You can't build anything else up. You cannot build your house unless you have your foundation. So,
or you can build it on sand and good luck with that. You know, build it on
and then
mud.
it's just going to fall, right? Exactly. It's going to fall down and collapse right on top of you.
That's it. Yeah. You know, it's, and I think the temptation is that we live poorly and then we will just supplement and medicate. You know, it's like, we waste 90% of our wellness. You know, you got all this wellness graph and this last 10% where you're getting sick. And it's like, why wait for that? And it's like supplements are not how people always, what can I put in, Conor? What can I put in to stop this happening? I'm like, you know, you just need to step back. Food. Or sometimes it's like what you stop putting in. You know, it's like people are just coming at you with 10, 15 supplements. And I'm like, guys, that is not the way to good health. I mean, there's just 4 or 5 things we need to address. Even a comfy bed at nighttime so they get solid sleep. Because you got to get the dog's got to go into deep sleep to regenerate. And so even things like that, you know, if your dog's got hip dysplasia, he needs comfier bedding. That has to be pointed out to some people. They don't understand that. And so there's so many things that you can do that you would do before you even consider medication. And medication's coming down the line because, you know, the whole kind of Valium market, which was so successful in the 1970s. The same family, actually. Did you know that 1 in 3 housewives in the US and Europe were taking Valium in the 1970s? And the family that pushed that whole campaign were the Sackler family. They were the same family that owned Purdue Pharmacy that pushed the whole OxyContin opiate scandal that the US is dealing with. The same family. Nobody goes to jail and they've just done it again. They've just done it again. 100,000 people a year suffering from this or dying from this, and families obliterated before that kid is that. I mean, it's tragic. But anyway, the point is, there's a lot. Some of the pills they like to push now are the antidepressants. You know, 1 in 10 of us are on these, and whatever about them, I'm sure they help with some people. All that I don't need to say that. But now it's being pushed in pets because pets are a very profitable market. Because once pets go on meds, they don't come off them, just like us, really. But I
see a lot of them get put on like Prozac and gabapentin.
Yeah, gabapentin is that's a hardcore pain relief, but with serious downstream effects. You know, so it's I worry that a lot of money is spent in veterinary circles to push these kind of head meds on dogs. You know, you got these COVID dogs, families that probably weren't going to get a dog, but they were locked in for a year or two, so we might as well get a dog. And now we're out, and it's like I'm back at work. It's like, shit, I have a dog at home, and it's like, just stick him on head meds, you know. And it's like, oh god. So it's tricky. Or you could be in an apartment in a city, and it's like when you're living at home for that year, great having a dog, best pal ever. But if you need to go back to work, that dog living in an apartment, the husky, the collie, the gun dog you got, that's not where he wants to be. He wants to be up to his elbows in horse poo, you know. So
not where they belong. Yeah, in horse poo. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, my golden retriever next to me, he's not quite. So I got him in like mid 2019. So he was about 6 months old once I had to stop leaving the house for about 4 months. And you know, he grew up through his adolescence with just me, my roommate, and my other dog. And my cats and no one else. And then, you know, all of a sudden,
heaven for the dog.
Heaven for the dog. Yeah. And then, and, you know, I mean, the only, I think, saving grace is I did have to leave because I was working extraordinary hours at the hospital during that time. So, I mean, I was working like 300 hours a month. And it, you know, it just was like, but he always had my roommate. So he always had someone.
Were you nursing? What were you doing, Cara?
I'm a nurse practitioner, so I was doing ER, ICU.
Lord. How was that? That must have been pretty much
a crazy year.
Like a horror movie. Like an absolute, I can't imagine.
It was. And can I just say, and it wasn't until maybe like a year later that we realized that the people who had the most extraordinary side effects were the people who were metabolically inflamed and unhealthy.
No doubt.
Number one risk factor,
1,000,000%.
obesity.
That's it. Yeah.
Number one risk factor, obesity.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Stick old age onto that and you are very, 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 very vulnerable. And honestly, listen, and maybe hopefully we'll learn from this and kind of say, you're not just vulnerable to cold, you're vulnerable to everything when you're
Everything.
old. You said, but you're old.
Yeah.
People don't understand the toll it takes, but
Yeah.
it's a tricky disease to fix too, because calories are so easy to get. They are so enjoyable. They're just so cheap. It's a hard task, but
Yeah.
it suffers on every respect. I wanted to say one thing about supplements. Look, aside getting the diet right, which is just getting onto any real food product, okay, anything, just real food product would be great. I like fresh raw dog foods, and there's likely cooked products that the US sells as well, and I think they're pretty good too. And so anything up there, you're in the top kind of 10%. And if you just supplement that food with some real stuff now and again, like an egg or tin of sardines, like just put some real stuff in there as much as you can. If some blueberries, into the garden, eat that, dog, and be quiet. That's behavioral enrichment. I mean, I'm actually going to go off, and when I come back to the supplements a bit, I need to write it down. Somebody said something very obvious on my page there. I was there's a professor over here, Professor Knight, and he pushes vegan diets for cats now, and it angers. Yeah, sorry, you nearly spat your tea out there. Sorry, I should have prepared you. Like that was a visceral response. Yeah,
it was.
It's like
for everyone listening and watching, cats are carnivores.
Oh my God! I mean, bloody hell! Oh, anyway, God, I've got another question. Here's another question, Cara. See how close you can get to this figure. How many birds do they estimate domestic cats take in North America alone each year?
Oh my gosh.
And then I'm going to do little mammals. Domestic cats first.
10,000.
Birds, 10,000 birds. Do you know what the answer is? And this is between 4 or 5 studies. This is the average. 1.4 billion to 4 billion birds.
That's a lot of birds.
How can a planet produce that many birds? So they decimate the birds. And do you know how many little mammals they take? Them being rats and mice. Guess. Now you're in the billions. So
3 billion.
They reckon 16 to 20 billion little mammals. Many. I swear to God. And
they're little tiny killers.
Yeah. So anyway, this Professor Knight, and he's a professor, wants to feed these guys vegetables and peas and corn and stuff with no science to back him up at all. But somebody made a very good point. They just said, could you imagine that poor cat who is obviously a meat-eating machine, eating the same brown kibble every day of his life? How tasteless! And I thought, from a behavioural point of view, how awful. Yeah. We wouldn't do that to the zoos and the animals in the zoo. It's called behavioural enrichment. A nice plate of food makes you happy. Dopamine's released. Your guts go, oh, I can't wait to eat that bit of steak off the barbecue or whatever you're into. So that I thought that from a behavioural thing, to give a dog something he loves. Every single study we have of food trials, so where they if dogs, what do you want to eat, buddy? Do you want to eat that pile of cauliflower or that dry food or the meat? Every single time dogs go for meat, they will work harder for meat. They'll work longer hours for meat. They run faster for meat. Meat. And when they're given ad lib food trials, in other words, a selection of foods, eat whatever you want, they just eat the meat. They just want meat. So they clearly want that. So why would you give them that? Now, I understand if you're vegan and stuff, you've got a little bit of a hill to climb there, and that's another day's conversation. But unfortunately, I mean, cats and dogs to a high degree. Dogs are very meat eatery, very, 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 very. They might eat a tiny bit of plant matter now and again, but not a whole lot. The studies show when the dogs are let off the lead with no human interference, so truly feral dogs, which you're rare to see. They don't like humans. They stay away from them. They are ultra carnivorous animals. It's when the studies that come from populations that just like free roaming dogs or village dogs in India, rural Zimbabwe, we get a lot of studies from there because they cull these dogs. There's not a lot of places they cull domestic dogs, but they do around the dumps in these places. But what they find is when those dogs grow up with humans, they will actually scavenge a bit more plant material. And the reason is poor people feed dogs plant material when they're young. So the dog grows up thinking, oh, I'll eat plant material, Yeah. So there's videos online of cats eating broccoli. It doesn't mean it's good for them. It's just that the owner showed them how to eat a piece of broccoli in the first 5 months of life. It's called the imprinting period.
Imprinting,
yeah. And after that, it slams closed. But so that's the diet studies are very confused, but we do know that these are very meat-eatery animals. So from a behavioural point of view, you should be giving him what he wants, and that's going to make him a very happy man. Ask your dog, do you think he'd be happier with a slice of bread or a sausage? Which do you think is going to wag his tail more? So why not feed him things he likes? A handful of blueberries out into the grass, and he's using his nose, and his nose is 25% of his brain capacity. So as opposed to smelling your house chemicals and you're plugging in air fresheners in your socks, he's outside and he's trying to find the blueberries that you've thrown into the grass or into the river or whatever.
Yeah.
So fueling that behavior outside with the dog is a wonderful idea. There's loads of people online doing cool things on YouTube, how to make different tricky puzzles for the dog to try and get his real food treats out of. So that's a really good thing to do for the dog. So better than just giving him a plastic toy to chew on. Who wants to consume plastic?
Yeah.
What about a raw meaty bone? Think about making steps towards that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I definitely want to talk about supplements because we both are trying to, but there's just so many things to talk about. But
Yeah.
one thing I do want to ask first, because you already kind of mentioned it, is, so you said, what would they rather eat? One big problem that we have, and I'll tell you, I think I mentioned this in my interview with Emily Stein from the Teef company, but one big problem we have is that we're all so addicted to carbohydrates, dogs, cats, people.
Yeah.
And when I went gluten-free and I got rid of processed like starches and sugars in the diet, it was incredibly difficult around week 2 to 3
it's
because
not fun.
the cravings that I had from cutting those out of my diet, literally because the microbes in my body thought that they were starving.
Yeah, they're punishing
is insane. And
That's
so
right.
we have so many pets pets and all of us, who we try so hard to eat the good food. And then, for our pets, they can't make we're making the choice for them, right? But for people that are trying to transition their dogs to fresh food and they just refuse to eat it, and they'll just sit there and starve and whine and want that bowl of kibble.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you would recommend from a behavioral standpoint to help with that?
Yeah, I would say there is there's a saying, the first time you have calamari, you don't want to see the squid flopping around on the plate. Nobody wants to look at a squid. Do you ever, if you in Greece and stuff, they eat those like tiny octopuses? I don't know anybody eats that sort of stuff. I was a vegetarian for 12 years. When I owned a raw dog food company, it was not easy. So I'm only now back in the meat because of this US nutritionist. No, she's a doctor. She's a really famous doctor, Catherine Shannon, really famous, wrote this famous book. Oh bloody hell, I can't get the name of the book out, but it's like a pivotal book. It completely changed the way we all thought about nutrition 20 years ago, and she did it again just recently. And so she talks about the 4 pillars, and I was reading the book after getting my 3rd knee operation, and the knee surgeon was telling me, right, listen, that's it for football, and you no more for you. And I was distraught. I was 35. I thought I was going to be playing soccer, at least with my friends and like 5-a-side and fun stuff. And he was like, that's it for you. And I was like, I was so distraught. I was walking out the door, and he goes, so, you weren't doing your weights and stuff. And I said, I was. I did everything you told me. And he goes, what are you eating? And I said, you don't need to tell me anything about food. I'm a nutritionist. I know quite a lot about food already. And he goes, you're not a bloody vegetarian, are you? And I was like, I said, I am. And then now I'm ready for a challenge. But I thought, he's just a doctor. I know way more about nutrition than most doctors. It's a fact. They don't learn it in college. How could they possibly? Anyway, so I was trying to be nice. I said, what are you going to tell me now? Blah, blah, blah. And he said, so where are you getting all your glucosamine and chondroitin from? And I'm like, he says, tell me you're supplementing yourself with glucosamine and chondroitin. I'm like, and he says, some nutritionist. And I was like, it was now he's a nice guy, I have a good relationship with him, but I walked out and I thought, well, now I feel exactly like how vets feel when someone points out the bloody obvious that fresh food is clearly good for animals, and you're like, I don't believe this. This is just, it's so damaging to the ego. You're like, oh my God. Like, how did I not give myself glucosamine, like in raw meaty bones, cartilage, and there's glucosamine, collagen, hyaluronic acid, glucagon, glutathione, all this stuff makes your joints good. You know what I mean? So that was a learning curve. I actually forgot the thrust of your question. Sorry. I know I'm going to come around to it when you remind me what the question was. You said we were starting talking about supplements. Oh, the transition. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So I had to go back to meat, and that was difficult. I started reading this Catherine Shanahan book. I get the name of it out. And I just said, of course I need to eat, And then she says, organ meats. Look how important these are as sinks. Predators, meat eaters, cats, dogs, they will take the organs first and that kind of stuff. Blood as a food ingredient. We eat blood sausage over here. It's a dark coloured sausage, and it's wonderfully nutritious. In Finland, they give blood sausage to animals that have seizures. And Professor Hein Borgman just said to me, Conor, go find out what might be in the blood. And I go off and find that there's all sorts of morphine-based compounds in blood that relax predators in the zoo. And there's all this is so much cool stuff. So I had to make a transition back to meat. And when I first, making it meat and burgers and stuff, no problem. Bang, straight onto it, and meat for the kids, meat. But organ meats I struggle with. So when you're a dry-fed dog and you've been eating dry food all of your life, as you said, particularly with cats, because cats have a very serious salt addiction because they're through like obligate carnivores. Dogs can flip-flop a little bit. Much easier with dogs. And some breeds, like a Labrador, it doesn't matter. Like it can be a shoe when you eat it. But some breeds can be picky. Cats are tricky. I struggle with the transition, but particularly with this dog, this imprinting period we mentioned previously, if you've been reared, they know since 1967, there was a big study of 100 Chow Chow pups. This Chinese girl called Ko had 100 Chow Chow pups in some sort of warehouse. Imagine what that looked like. Just to lie down and have them rubbing all. I'd love that. So she got 3 groups of Chow Chow pups, and to one group she fed just vegetable matter, to the other group she fed meat and bone, and to the third group she fed veg, meat and bone. And what she found was that the dogs reared on vegetarian diets would only eat vegetarian stuff when they're older. The dogs reared on the meat diets would only eat meat when they're older, and those fed a mix would eat pretty much anything. So this taste experience is learned young, and then it closes quite quickly. So it's like, okay, I'm a mushroomivore, I'm a tomatoivore. Try give a mushroom to a person that's never had a mushroom in 20 years, and they not like the texture. I adore mushrooms. I was reared on them. I picked them with my mum in the forest. So some people, tomatoes, it repulses them, the feel of it. And it's like, how could you hate a tomato? I mean, it's such a delicious tomato. And so texture is a big thing for dogs as well, and for cats. You try, people will start and go, how about some chicken breast? And the dog's going, what do I do with that? I mean, that is a gross gelatinous, like that is an acquired kind of taste, it's gross. So the dog doesn't know he's a meat eater. The cat doesn't know he's a meat eater. So the transition is in my opinion, can be done very easily. And the way I would do it is, this is a very long way to answer your question. Bloody hell, 10 minutes and I haven't even got to the answer yet. I'm so sorry. God, this is life with this head. But what I would do is I would start off with things the dog is going to consume. And so the first bit would be cooked meat. Okay, so your dog has smelled cooked meat. You have given him cooked meat. He's had cooked meat treats. He's had meat flavored dry food for years. So there's been a bit of meat in his life. So it won't be weird for that dog if you got some thin strips of beef and you sprinkle them with salt. Who cares? Good quality salt is actually quite nutritious. It's got a bad rep because ultra processed food is so full of salt and it's kind of rotted us away. But good quality salt is necessary. Elephants walk hundreds of miles to get to it. Horse licks, cows need salt, and so it's important that we get a bit of salt in the diet. Raw-fed dogs, anybody listening, you need a bit of salt. And you don't need to put the salt in the food. What you can do is you can have a bowl of fresh water, and then you can have a second bowl of fresh water that you dissolve some salt into. And so, so if your dog needs electrolytes, he'll take them. And so gut-sick dogs, stressed dogs, pretty good idea. Raw-fed dogs, and if they need it, they'll take it because they can smell the compounds. So I would start with some lightly salted cooked meat. And you can put it on the George Foreman and put those black lines on it. There's a reason we like those black lines, because that's a Maillard reaction where you bond the protein to sugar we mentioned earlier. That's actually a very tasty thing. And we love it. That's why, Whopper burgers cooked on the flame. It's very popular because our guts
are
good
for you, but it tastes so good.
So good. It's just not fair. Everything that is amazing in my life is bad for me. Like, sit down, have a beer and a steak, but don't forget it's bad for you. That works for dogs, cats. I mean, vegans struggle to say no to that. So I would start with some cooked meat, cooked turkey. You can make little turkey balls. You can put them on the pan and brown them on the pan. You can leave them in the oven. So I would start off with a little bit or a beef burger, and you could cook the beef burger each side for 20-30 seconds and sprinkle a little bit of salt. The next time you cook it for 20 seconds, next time you cook it for 15 seconds, 10 seconds, and you make it rawer and rawer until eventually, fresh beef is actually pretty cool. I mean, France is living on it, so there must be something to it. So you can make that transition. So before I would go and load up the fridge with, 50 pounds of turkey raw dog food that cost me half a car's worth of my income, and then the dog goes, I don't really want that. And it's like, oh, God, what am I going to do? Yeah.
Perhaps not.
I think I the kibble. So I would have that dog an absolute turkey addict before I showed him that turkey dog food. So if I had a dog that was, smaller dogs, small little toys, some dogs could, honestly, dogs are easy. It's the cats that you have to make a very slow transition with cats. They are tricky. How you present the food to them, where you present the food. There is numerous articles on that. We've done a number of videos. I do a show called Raw Pet Medics on Tuesday nights, and you'll see that we've covered a number of different cats. But the guys also do a show on Fridays just for cats, and so they've covered the.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a cat one. It's it's all about cats. Now they do it once a month, but they've done 2 or 3 shows on how to transition a cat because it's so annoying.
That's so funny.
It's so
I'll have to tune in. Would
Yeah.
you like to take a guess how long it took to transition my 3 cats who were all over the age of 10?
Oh, horrific. But I'm going to say 30 days.
A year.
No.
A year. It took a whole year.
No.
My
Oh
Mike,
my
I have
God.
a 13-year-old. Well, he was 13 when I started. Now he's 15. Well,
Oh, gee, hell.
yeah. And he would not eat no matter what I
Oh,
did. And I
yeah,
got so scared because I was like, you're
Yeah,
old.
yeah.
You have to
You
eat.
can't,
So
you can't,
it
you can't
was
starve them into it. No, yeah.
so
Oh,
excruciatingly slow. We went from
yeah,
kibble to air dried,
yeah,
from air dried then to freeze dried,
yeah,
and then from freeze dried to gently cooked. And
yeah,
then we got stuck on gently cooked for about 4
yeah,
months. No matter
yeah,
how small amount of raw I
yeah,
mixed into the
yeah,
gently cooked, this guy would just look at me like he just knew.
yeah.
But
Did you
then we
try?
finally got there. And
That's
now
good. Good on you.
it's so cute. You should see him trot with his little, he chirps. He
Yeah,
trots over and then he chirps. He waits for his food. It's the
yeah.
cutest thing in the world.
That's
So we
cute.
got
Yeah.
there, but
A chicken
man, you have to
wing
have
on
the
a.
patience of a saint.
Yeah, you do. A chicken wing on a string is one that they will do. So they'll a chicken wing on a string with a bit of salt on it, and so you have to trail a chicken wing. Don't do this at home, kids. Do it outside. So you've got to, but if you've got a cat that's inside, like it can be a little bit of a tricky move over, but it can be done, and it's very, very easy. And it's like the studies are pouring in. I mean, we have as much as dry dog food and the veterinary industry as a whole tells you, oh, we've just got so much science. We've so much science. Can we see some? No, you can't see it. Just trust us that we have it. Because when I went looking, that's the whole point of my book, and that's, I mean, it was reasonably successful because nobody's actually looked at the studies backing up this. For example, bringing it back to behavior, brain diet. Hill's Pet Food have a product called BD, which means brain diet, KD, kidney diet, CD, cancer diet. And so the BD brain diet is, the thing about the prescription foods is, let's say their skin diet. I'm not saying this is the Hill's product, but let's say some sort of dermal care product. The two products are virtually identical. Okay, one product is their standard muck that they call Complete Pet Food, and the next product that is sold for 3 times the price under prescription, even though you can buy it in the supermarket. It's such a rip off.
Don't even get me started, man.
It's the exact same product, but with a bit of fish oil in it. And they get dogs that have itchy skin conditions, and they feed them
oxidized fish oil.
Yeah, but it's better than no fish oil. And so what you do is, so what happens is you get dogs on, shitty cereal-based dry food, and then they're on the same shitty cereal-based dry food, but they've got to really pour a little bit of fish oil on top. And what happens? They've slightly less itch because fish oil is going to do that for you. So what happens? They wrap that up as magic dermal care dry food. So that's the dupe. But with brain diet, here's what they did. They usually produce one little tiny weak study, and you can, if you pursue it enough, you'll find the study. But with brain diet, there was a very interesting study behind it, and what they did was they got 40 geriatric beagles, which is in the latter end of maturity, and you're expecting some mental not performance, the opposite way, mental degeneration in those last few years. And you can measure that, and you can measure that with black and white size discrimination tasks and that kind of stuff. There's little tests that people do. I don't know. And so what they got 2 groups. They got one group on their standard, complete, dry food stuff. I keep putting that in inverted commas because 62% of complete dry food fail to meet the minimum standards. Yeah, and 94% of tins. And that includes 62% includes prescription dry foods, which was 64% of prescription dry foods. Fail to meet the minimum requirements to get a dog through 6 months. So don't talk to me about complete. Anyway.
But Dr. Conor, it has to be complete and balanced.
Oh, it says it on the front of it. Yeah, who measured that? Show me the data. Anyway, show me the data. Anyway, one group eating their standard muck, and the other group got the standard muck. But in brain diet, there's 4 extra ingredients. They've got 1% dried blueberries, 1% dried carrot, 1% dried spinach, and 1% dried tomato. And I was like, bloody hell, because those ingredients, in blueberries there's anthocyanins, in carrots there's lutein, in green stuff like spinach and stuff there's folate, and those things are good for your head. So what they do is they add in those little bits and pieces, and it turns out after 2 years locked in a cage eating the same food every single day, when those animals were asked to do tasks 2 years later, the ones getting the tiny bit of crappy blueberry flakes and crappy carrot flakes did a tiny bit better in the test. Okay. Now I don't doubt that they got a few extra brain compounds and they did slightly better, and then the company wraps this up and sells it to you 3 times the price as some magic food. So the lesson for the veterinary community wasn't that, oh, look at that, if you give real food to animals like a little bit of blueberry and carrots and stuff we give old people to decrease their mental kind of slide, It's good for dogs too. And also, what does complete mean? If you can add things to it and the animals do better, that means the other product isn't complete and therefore dangerous and harmful. You shouldn't be able to increase the performance of a complete product if it's perfect for every animal on the planet. So those sort of studies infuriate me. But what it does show is that you can improve the animals by putting in these little real food ingredients. So you can have your basic raw diet, but if you get kidney disease or pancreatitis, as we'll talk about in a second, you can have this basic raw diet that you can tweak and you can make improvements with a simple Google, a quick chat GPT, top 5 foods for reducing brain. I can't even get the words out. I mean, this is the end of the week here, so even it's ironic I'm trying to think of the word for brain decline, neurodegeneration. Dementia. There you go. My favorite time today. So with the supplements, what they want to sell you is like you'll get these tryptophan supplements. We put tryptophan. But like, as I keep saying, you don't need to get down into that nitty gritty because it's a multitude of things. Just get all the good stuff in there. Go eat some turkey. There you go. There's all the. That's it. The studies of tryptophan, when they show you a few studies of dogs performing better with tryptophan, they are dogs eating tryptophan deficient diets. Because if I have enough tryptophan, more tryptophan doesn't make me calmer. I've got enough. If your dog is eating raw dog food with 10% bone in it, he's getting oodles of glucosamine and chondroitin. So the joint supplement you don't need is glucosamine and such. So when your dog starts getting lame at 14, 15 years of age and he's raw fed and he's taking huge amounts of glucosamine and chondroitin in from his diet, more glucosamine and chondroitin is not going to help him. It's like piling up bricks outside a well-built house. He will benefit from maybe more omega-3 or some green lip muscle or eggshell membrane and these other cool things that we know can help joints. Yeah. But if you're a dry-fed dog, which has no glucosamine and chondroitin in it, and you've got this Labrador walking like a coffee table at 7 years old, you better believe he'll appreciate some glucosamine and chondroitin. But as opposed to paying the vet for those capsules of dried cartilage, give the dog a bone. That's the way to do it.
Give your dog a bone. Exactly.
There you go. Yeah.
Dr. Ian Billinghurst will be proud.
I love him. I love Billinghurst. He's a legend.
I have all his books are behind me up there somewhere.
Yeah,
but
he's such a nice dude as well. He's so cool. Yeah, look at that.
So for those who are listening, I have Dr. Connor's book, Feeding Dogs. Is this Dudley, by the way?
That is not Dudley. Even my kids thought it was Dudley. No, it was just this beautiful picture. The picture is actually enormous, and it was lost a bit on the front cover, but it did the job. Somebody pointed out afterwards, is that food frozen? I went, oh yeah, I didn't even notice.
Yeah, you can tell.
Yeah,
you can see
I didn't even know. I just thought it was looking colourful.
Yeah, there's some frozen, there's some freeze dried, but okay. So this book, I love this book so much, and so you mentioned a few things that I think are of note. So the first is the prescription diet. The word prescription drives me up a wall. So my dog, Copper, not the one who's been poking his head into the camera, my other dog, he's a hound mix. I got him within like a few weeks of having him. I knew something was wrong because he would never eat. He didn't want to eat anything. And he was actually so thin that the rescue estimated that he was younger than the vet thought he was when I took him in and they like looked at his dentition. And as he got older, he started having like vomiting episodes and his stool was always like a nice cow pile. And it wasn't until I kind of had tried to push my conventional vet. Can we do some labs? And in my brain, I knew something was not quite right, but I didn't connect it, although I should have. And it wasn't until between annual appointments, he had actually lost weight that they finally did some blood work for me. And he got diagnosed with chronic pancreatitis. And it frustrated me because I was given the age-old answer, oh, he must have gotten into the grease trap. Oh, you shouldn't have given him a piece of bacon from the table. And I was like, whoa, full stop. I don't feed, quote, human food to my dog. I know better than that. They don't get table scraps. So what did we do? He got put on a prescription GI diet, which was even lower in fat than, his regular diet. And would you believe that it cost about $89 for this 20-pound bag of GI prescription food that lasted him a month? And he didn't get any better. What a surprise. He kept having episodes. And so, I don't, people don't know this, but you have your macros, right? And so you have your fat, your protein, and your carbs. And if you take one away, you have to add another one back. Well, nobody's adding more protein. So if you take away fat, what did they add? Carbs.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And he never got better.
Yeah.
And so one day I went to the internet and thank God I came across Dr. Judy Morgan talking about food.
Love Judy.
Fresh food. And so it took me a while. I had to convince myself. Coming
Yeah.
from the conventional human medicine
Yeah, we
space,
all
I was
did.
very terrified to put raw food in front of my dog because, my brain
Yeah.
went, oh God, salmonella.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
finally,
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
day, I slapped a plate of chicken in front of him, physically held myself back from pulling it out of his mouth
Yeah.
once he started eating.
Yeah.
And from that day forward, my dog has never had a pancreatitis flare again. For 5
Yeah.
years, he every few
Yeah.
months would have an acute pancreatitis flare. He would barf 10 times that day. He would have
Yeah.
diarrhea.
It's
He'd have a
agony.
hunched back. He was in pain.
Yeah.
He was underweight.
Yeah.
And it's been 3.5 years now, and this dog has not had pancreatitis.
Yeah.
I
That's
mean,
great.
he gained 15 pounds. He's a Great Pyrenees mix
Oh, yeah.
with a coonhound. So he's
And
meant to be a big dog. He weighs about 65 pounds now. At his thinnest,
Yeah.
he was 50. Can you imagine
That's
how bony
crazy.
that dog was?
That's crazy. And I'm sure your vet was just so fascinated with how you did it. Tell me how you did this, Cara. This is amazing.
So I moved. It's funny. What really facilitated this is we moved across the country. And it took about 6 months for my new hospital to credential me, because in human medicine, it just takes a bajillion years to get your credentials.
I'll get it back.
So I was sitting here out of work for 6 months. And that was when I transitioned him. So by the time I got a new vet, he was already on fresh food. And I did find myself an integrative vet, so she was very supportive of me. But I would love to go home one day to Buffalo and go to my old vet and say, here, and see what they think.
Look what I did. Look what I did.
Yeah. Look what I did with food.
The pancreatitis thing is odious because when your dog gets sick with pancreatitis, which is like a gunshot, apparently, it's absolutely agony as your pancreas starts to digest the surrounds. Not nice. Not a nice illness to have. And by the time you see the pain in the dog, he's been going through quite a lot of pain. But the really rotten thing about that disease is when you get into the vets that they blame you. Or at least that, you dropped the ball and the dog ate something. So now we've known for years. In fact, marathon runners have known this, ultra marathon runners have known this for years and years, that the way to get the long distance stuff out of your body is to eat fat. And so there's a big difference between eating fat and carbs. Your body, let's pretend there's only two fuel sources. You've got stored energy as well, which is good for a couple of seconds. But your 100-meter dash, let's say, that's the kind of the energy you can kind of store. But if you want to do a 400-meter lap of that track, your body really wants to burn carbs. Carbs is like gas, okay? So fat is like bloody crude oil, It is awesome, okay? It works, it's great, but it only works in like big ships and big heavy machinery and stuff. So your body wants to burn carbs. It loves burning carbs. Carbs is sugar, and sugar is just lovely, fast, boom, 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 give me carbs. So carbs are a great fuel source and the body loves burning. And it turns out that if you feed an animal, human, any animal, carbs, the body will burn carbs and then not burn fat. So it won't use the oxidation system. It'll just use the glycogen, the blood sugar system. It won't use the oxidation system, the third one that you learned about in school. That's where you burn fat. So it just says, no, I'll just burn carbs. And as long as you're feeding me carbs every now and again, I'll just keep on burning carbs. And that's great. So the transition from burning carbs to burning fat when you run out of carbs is called hitting the wall. We've all seen marathon runners when they start to buckle at the legs, and it's a terribly difficult process to get through. Everybody experiences with a diet. You want to go keto, you cut out the carbs from your diet, your body burns away all the sugar, and then it gets really snotty and it says, where is the sugar? And everyone starts calling for it, and it's a horrible process as your body goes trying to start burning fat. And once you start burning fat, once you get into ketosis, it's wonderful. It's easy, it's simple. You forget about carbohydrates, you forget about sweets, you don't go to the sweet cupboard, you can walk past sweet shops. It's easy peasy. But those 2 weeks, it's a little bit of a, as you said with your own diet at the start, it's hard to get off the sugar. Everybody knows this. So burning sugar is what the body wants to do. Now we have studies of humans and studies of dogs to show us, 2 big studies of dogs. Mark Roberts is the vet. We're talking to him next Tuesday night for anyone that wants to understand more about carbs and energy. He's the only raw fed, as in all meat, organ and bone, full Siberian Husky sled team doing the longer races up in the top of the US and Canada. So most of the time people use a mix of dogs. They're mutts of Huskies and Greyhounds and all sorts of mix to get this. I actually did it a couple of times. It's cool. You get this dog that you would look at them and go, that's not a very impressive looking dog. I was expecting these big Siberian Huskies and I'd be sitting in the throne being pulled through the snow. It's like these lithe little dogs and they're just aching to pull. So anyway, so Mark Roberts is the boss about this, and he did some very simple experiments. He just said, what happens when I feed dogs high carbohydrates and high fat diets and change the dogs from fat to carbs and carbs to fat. So we now absolutely know that eating high carbohydrates results in fat building in the blood. So vets are really worried about from pancreatitis point of view. They always measure the blood and they see how much blood triglycerides are in there. And so when they see lots of fat in the blood, all the vets concluded that's because you're eating fat. Like the way all our doctors concluded when they looked at cutting open people that have all these, heart disease and metabolic disease, they're full of cholesterol. And all the GPs are saying you've been eating lots of cholesterol, lots of saturated fat. And now we know, well, actually the vast majority of that cholesterol your body produced. It's like a fire extinguisher trying to cool off the place. And so most GPs still don't understand that. They're still telling you to eat less cholesterol, and vets are still telling you to eat less fat. Okay, dogs are fat. They are fat burning machines. Dogs live in ketosis. Cats live in ketosis. They don't eat carbohydrates. It's a new addition. Where the hell did this come from? They live in protein and fat world. So they live in this ketosis all the time. It's no problem to them. If you've knocked them out with carbs, if you feed them a lot of carbs. So vets will say, did you follow my dietary advice and stick to it? Did you give them a bit of sausage off the barbecue? And that can knock the dog, that can sicken the dogs. What happens is you're feeding these high carbohydrate diets. So the pancreas, little carnivore pancreas, has to produce furious amounts of amylase and insulin to balance all this hell that you're giving the dog. So that's a very precarious kind of pancreas. So the
which
question,
they're genetically not
ready for. That's not what I'm doing. That's not what I'm supposed to do. It's like it's a petrol car running on diesel over here in Europe. You don't get much diesel at your pumps over there, but we do. And so that's what's going on. And so it's the straw that breaks the camel's back. So yes, you might have given the dog a bit of fat off your steak, but it's like the question is, why couldn't your dog eat a bit of fat off a steak? That is his energy. That's what he needs. It is the most sought after item in the wild because fat is rare. There's no fatty animals in the wild. They're cheeseburgers, they're caught. So I find it really annoying that like the dietary advice is what put the dog on the slab in the first place. It wasn't because you gave a bit of fat off your steak. So I really hate, and it's not the vet's fault. The vet means well. The vet at the coal face means well. The veterinary industry knows bloody well that high carbohydrate diets are fueling pancreatitis, obesity, high cancer rates. Dogs are 10 times more likely to get cancer than we are. 10 times. We're the most cancer-stricken animals on the planet, bar dogs that are 10 times more likely. I mean, it is odious to think that carbohydrates would play a role in an animal struck with cancer. I mean, we know to get them off the sugar, and yet kibble is still the recommended. No fresh food for an animal with cancer. No high protein, high fat diets. What are you talking about? It's crazy. I hate that.
Well, who sponsors the schools now?
I know.
Right? Who's funding? I know. And I'm not afraid to sound like a conspiracy theorist now. Like I just accept that I sound this way to people who aren't looking. But and I love how I was on your website like prior to the episode today, and I was just kind of reading some of the things you said, and I really love how you legitimately write right there. I'm here to cut through the bullshit and just dissect through it so that I could show you the truth that lies beneath. And I like how you have like the studies up there and stuff. And you know, it truly is, the human pharmaceutical industry is the exact same way.
Oh,
they come
it's the same
to the
beast.
hospital, they come to the offices, they give us food, which is all cooked in seed oils.
Yeah,
and then while we're munching on our foods, and giving ourselves like a dopamine boost because of all the crap we're eating, they're saying, here, give your patient a sample of this drug. They'll be totally fine. And it's insane. It's insane.
It's unbelievable. Well, a friend of mine, lovely lad, but he had been working in the kind of hospitality industry for years and didn't really have any place to be in a pharma industry, but he got a job as a drug rep, and because he can talk, he's great at talking, and they trained him up for 6 months, and they trained him up for a specific task. They said that the inhalers that everybody takes in the West is gas inhaler. You'd know more about it than I would, whatever's in that stuff. That the patent on the inhaler that everybody uses, that blue inhaler, was up about 2-3 years ago, 4 years ago. That was a patented drug, and you get the patent for 20 to 22 years at maximum. And once the patent goes up, suddenly the price of your product you've been charging everyone $5 for, somebody in India can make it for 20p and your market's gone. And so the company started using all of its profits from its inhalers for the last year to train up loads of people. And they changed their inhaler from a gas to a powder. And you would still inject it in, powder into the back of your throat. They produced a single study that I'm sure if I was to look at it, it would be absolutely odious. But the point is, they then send all the reps out to all the doctors in the area and they target the doctors that recommend the most inhalers. So just like the opiate scandal. And I'm like, how could the drug company possibly know? And he said that the doctors and hospitals give what they sell each month goes to the drug companies to let them know how they're doing. But it doesn't come to the public. So we don't get to know what drugs are being used and side effects. None of that. We don't get any of that. No side effect studies for us. But the drug companies get all that. And so they can send their reps out. And so he said, I would just go out there. I would buy pizza for extremely overworked veterinary nurses or for nurses and doctors. The nurses often have the ear of the doctor, depending on what sort of hospital they're talking to. You get them in a room, feed them shit food, which is ironic. And move them over then to chalk inhalers. I was like, is it any better? And he goes, I assume so. And I'm like, I bet you it's not. It's like, that was just gave me a little taster of like, they change because of patents. It's not because, oh, look, we found this amazing new cure or something. And I think we have major issues. And for the same reason, it's the same companies, it's the same thing. It's just business, It made me sleep easier at night, because I spent a lot of time hating Pfizer, hating dry food companies, hating the industry that produces these vets who we love the vets, love doctors, but hate the industry above them that are poisoning them and putting us at war with each other, Marion Nestle, this American, she's a big food advocate. She won those awards for all sorts of things, wrote some great books. And Marion Nestle said, listen, corporates, stop wasting your time hating corporates. Stop wasting your time hating that game. She says, they are predators. They don't hate you. They don't love you. They're just predators and they eat cash. And so that's it. They need to eat all the time. So they're not doing it because they hate you or love you. They're just going to do it. And so if the business model is take drugs, well, then we're going to get as much drugs into as you can. We're going to get lifestyle drugs. We're going to get drugs you have to take for all of your life. Diabetes is a cash cow. Obesity is a cash cow. That's just a fact. And so everybody's making money, so it's going to keep going. No CEO, it's actually against the law for the CEO to reduce the income of his company, saying, do you know what, maybe we shouldn't keep lowering the bar for SSRIs or for statin medications and all that kind of bull. So we have major problems, but it filters into the pet world because nobody asks questions to pet. We don't know anything. We go to the vet and we just take the drug. And so now we're giving flea treatments for dogs with no fleas, wormers to dogs with no worms, annual boosters for already vaccinated dogs, dry pet food made on Weetabix and cereal. It's like, it's
sprayed with glyphosate.
Oh, yeah. Like we have major problems. We really do.
Yeah. I think the thing that people don't realize is, and it's just because this is the way our society has been cultivated for so long, but, obesity is not an Ozempic deficiency, and depression is not a Prozac deficiency.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you know what I mean? It's all your food, it's all your environment, and it's all your metabolic health. And if you don't optimize those things, then sure, you could be on 15 medications, but they're only a Band-Aid. It's a temporary fix.
Yeah.
And that's going to get ripped off eventually, and then you're screwed. So
definitely.
It's like, how far can you go until you can't come back from it anymore? Yeah. So you really we need to be more cautious. And luckily, people like you exist, and you write amazing
I think it's
books.
changing. I think
you're talking.
I think everybody put podcasts. This is great as well, Carrie. You're doing your bit podcast. I mean, who doesn't listen to podcasts now? I just listen to 2 or 3 hour. Everybody wants to listen to long podcasts. It's like, a 20-minute video now on YouTube kind of annoys me when I'm walking the dog, because I want to get I want to hear all the detail. Not everybody wants it that way, and there's also a role for people that are great in social media, can pass the message off. I think the world has changed. I think the food, people are demanding better quality food. We're questioning things as horrific as COVID was for some people. We're now looking back over some of the responses going, gee, we could have done that a bit better. Let's try tweak that. And so we have to learn, because otherwise we're going to go into another pandemic and do all the same stuff again. Like 100 million birds have been killed in the US over bird flu. 10,000 kids. So 100 million dead birds. Your egg prices are going to go up, your meat prices are going to go up. And if you only
the eggs are just gone. They're gone.
Lads,
the shelf has been bare for about 2 weeks. I have 4 eggs left in my fridge, and
that's the most nutritious food on the planet. What are you going to sub that with? You're going to put in breakfast cereal. So if I could urge people here as a small plug, for people that are listening, my website is drconorbrady.com, drconorbrady.com. And I have a video there. It's free to view. It's 90 minutes long. It's called Bird Flu, the movie. And I urge you to check it out. Okay, so just skip past the first half, which is kind of just looking back at how we've been doing it over the last 3 or 4 years. But just go to the bit about the bird flu vaccines that we're using at the moment, where the efficacy is so low. and there was some harm in the one study they have supported this. And it's like, we need to get on board this because you guys are pet owners, you're feeding raw dog food, and raw dog food is now making the papers as a possible vector, in inverted commas, for bird flu. And we found a cat, and they used PCR analysis. These are things that if you are not aware of these words I'm saying, watch the video. If you know what they are, because you need to prepare, because when raw dog food prices start going up through the roof, because chicken is the wheat of raw dog food, you know, there's going to be some big decisions for people that have a 50-pound carnivore in their kitchen, and they're like, I can't feed venison to this dog. You know, it's a problem.
Ridiculously expensive. Do I pay my rent this month, or do I feed my dog this month? Yeah,
that's exactly it.
I have your video saved on my phone to listen. I have to actually, it's funny that you just said that. I'm literally making a drive today that's going to be about 90 minutes long to go and pick up 60 pounds of raw ingredients for my meal prep. And so your video is saved for me to watch, but I actually will add that I just wrote a very long, very detailed blog article about this. And at the beginning of the article, the first thing I put there was definitions. So I have a definition. What is a virus? What is H5N1? What is a vector? What is and so bing, bing, bing. So I have all of that in there. So that would be a great pairing. So watch Dr. Connor's video, and then I'll link also my article for people to read.
Where do I find the article?
It's on my website. It's rawpawadventures.com, and then you just click on blog.
Oh, cool. I'm going to check that out. There's not enough people talking about that either. We're kind of passively moving into this one, and I believe we're passively moving into it because we haven't learned. Like there isn't shows on the TV yet. You know, we're waiting. Remember the show Dope Sick came out a year or two ago, and it's like, because I covered it in the book, and because I'd studied the opiate epidemic for the last 10 years, that's been something that I've been switched onto. But you know, but people saw Dope Sick, and they took Michael Keaton to show them on Dope Sick. I said, that was 15, 20 years ago. I said, there's 80, 100,000 people a year dying of this, and families torn apart. The
I
death
have a
figures
Narcan kit that is in my glove compartment of my car. Literally.
That's unbelievable. That's
just
tragic.
In case you come across someone, you know, I mean, the amount of people that I have had dragged into my ER with an overdose, and we give them Narcan literally while they're lying on the floor of the waiting room is insane. But that's not what this is about today. But,
man.
It's crazy.
I find it utterly tragic. Like, you know, there's 20 veterans a year, or 20 veterans a day killing themselves. I feel like there are some major problems out there that I don't think pharma is kind of going to help these people. I think there's going to be, or maybe some other type of pharma perhaps. But like, I am passionate about all that sort of things. I think most people are, and I kind of hope that when it comes to the behavioural bit in dogs, that they don't fall for the same kind of nonsense that has been pushed on us. It's like, you know,
kind of
honest to God, eat a good meal, go for a walk with your pal. There you go, done. Do that every single day, and you will be physically and mentally better. And it's just, we're not doing that. We're being encouraged the opposite way. So the mental health bit is really important. I saw, just to conclude on this, a friend of mine who had a bad turn. There was something that happened. It happens men in their early 40s. I don't know why it is, but it's 3 of my 6 closest friends would have had a very, very bad wobble in the early 40s. I think it's kind of like, you know, you're halfway and you're going, what am I doing? Am I doing something good? You know, so anyway, this guy was telling me that he wasn't feeling well, and he started not sleeping, and it took a terrible toll on him. It turned him into, it shrank him by about half a foot in size. I mean, he looked physically ill. And he started getting really nervous and worried. And next thing he knows, we're saying, how are we going to fix this? So he told me he'd been at the doctor. The doctor has him on antidepressants, anti-anxiety tablets, and sleeping tablets. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? And he goes, I don't know. And I said, so why are you on all the tablets? I said, have you talked to a mental health person? I mean, maybe there's one mental health nurse for our entire county of whatever it is. It's maybe, 200,000-300,000 people. You can't get near her. And unless you're actively trying to harm or kill yourself, you will not get near the mental health services here in Ireland. That's a fact. That's a truth. I'm just after being through it over a couple of years ago, not with me, with my friend. And so I was like, we got to get into the mental health services. Couldn't get near them because it's just, like, 3 years ago, COVID was happening. I was like, it was a mess. So we ended up just doing the stuff that I thought would be a good idea. Get up 7 o'clock in the morning in March in Ireland. It is the worst weather on the planet. It is North Pole bad. And we just jumped into the sea every morning, sunrise, every single morning, jump into the sea. That cold water therapy, sitting there, he wasn't even able to talk. And we're just watching the sun, and it was kind of awkward because men don't talk face to face. You know, we talk shoulder to shoulder, we talk in football, we talk over a beer, but we don't talk face to face. Girls are better at that. So anyway, sitting on the beach with your kind of best friends, a bit awkward. But so you're sitting there, and then over time, you know, a couple of weeks later, you just start to say a few words, and it's like, you know,
Yeah.
this is the most normal time of my. And then bang, he comes out of it. A month later, he comes off that med, comes off that med, comes off that med, and he's going to the doctor saying, "I'm trying to sleeping tablets are the hardest to get off." And then suddenly things are okay now. We don't know what it was, but like the initial response from the sector that believes pharma, you know, that's just pasting over the cracks, guys. It's a plaster on gangrene, and it's the same in your dog. You know, your behavioural effects and the negative behaviour in your dog is a sign of something. It's either a sign of a deficiency or a sign of pain. Those are the top two things. It's not just because he wants to be a bit of a dick. You know, he's like, excuse me, like it's like dogs are just naturally cool creatures. They're just nice and relaxed and chilled, and they don't fight. They fight way less than humans. They're just awesome. So if there's a bit of a behavioural issue, it's not the pill you're looking for. It's just, you know, get that foundation right. And before you start training the dog, that's not bringing a dog with a poor foundation into training. You're asking for trouble, you know?
Right. I mean, in this whole conversation, right, has been about the foundation. I would wager that. So, I mean, the cold plunge that you were talking about, you know, it stimulates your mitochondria to essentially wake up and work better. So I would wager that he probably had some kind of dysfunction at the cellular level that was causing his mitochondria to, like, their energy production to just be disrupted, and that probably had a downstream effect that led to, you know, depression and a lot of things. So I would recommend a book to you. It just came in the mail the other day for me. It's called Good Energy, and it was written by Kelly and Casey Means. Yeah. I desperately want to get them to come and talk to me on my podcast, but neither one of them are taking. They're not taking requests right now. I was all over their website. I know, but I'm very excited to finish reading that book. But I was very inspired by their story. But yeah. So I mean, I think the main takeaway here is work on your foundation. You know, you don't have a supplement deficiency. You have a nutrient deficiency. So don't reach for the multivitamin. You know, don't reach for 10 different pills that you're putting in your pill case in the morning. Reach for real food. Reach for variety. Reach for color, different colors, you know, all and just work on it from there. And, you know, I also just kind of want to urge people, especially because we touched briefly on the whole bird flu thing. Be careful, because the censoring is real. Meta just permanently deleted my Facebook. It's gone. Everything I've built, all my followers, my whole platform, it's gone. You're just 15
days away. You're just 15 days away. The next administration, I hope there's a lot of talk whether good things. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't trust any billionaires. I just don't. I mean, I don't trust anyone anymore. I really don't. I can't believe you've lost your. I have stagnated at 65,000 likes since for 4 years because I mentioned COVID. Maybe 4 times in my life I mentioned it. I just said, hey guys, at the end of 2020, I said, hey guys, here's 20 studies about why vitamin D might be a good thing to keep grannies topped up with. Vitamin D, zinc, K2, the usual stuff. I said, this is the best sources, all that. And after that, it was just my page was just person non grata.
The censoring is real. It's a big problem. And already people are posting things about the bird flu vaccine. And just the headlines of articles that they're sharing or blog posts that they've written are being censored and removed. And groups, like if you share them in a group, warnings will go up that say, this was fact checked and found to be include partially false information. Bird flu vaccine is safe. And then it will warn you if you continue sharing things that your group could be censored. So just be careful if you're searching for something or you're writing something, or just make sure that you're using language that will not catch Meta's eye, because
Did you see what Zuckerberg said there 2 days ago? Did you see what he said about, listen to this. I actually posted it on my page, and then I removed it because I thought, you know what, I can wait 15 days. Let me just read out his quote. Zuckerberg said that he is changing the Facebook's policy on it's getting rid of his fact checkers. And he said, we're getting rid of the fact checkers. Let me find it. Of course, I've put it somewhere. I don't know where it is. He said he's getting rid of his fact checkers in favor of community notes, as they have in Twitter. He's moving the content moderators and the people that ban stuff from California to Texas. And he says that he is not happy with the way Facebook has gone with the last two administrations since 2016, since Trump got in the first time. He said it's been the fact checkers have been politically biased. And he's going to correct that ASAP. And so it was
Okay.
a 1-minute video. It's all over YouTube. So, you know, I believe that those lads will just do whatever. You know, they'll do whatever they're told, and it'll be interesting. Like, I mean, as much as all this next administration gets in, why wouldn't they use the same tricks that were used on them and fiddle the other side? I don't see why they won't do that, you know. But I'm hoping, I'm full of hope that at least we'll be able to talk about some of these hot topics, because with the likes of you know, Musk going in there that has a certain bent on things, or RFK going in there with a certain bent on certain things, it's like we're at least able to talk. So if Musk is this freedom of speech dude that he claims to be, you know, if he is, well then maybe this is why Zuckerberg is allowing people to talk more openly on Facebook pages. But it's a real thing. A lot of my friends have got their pages closed just for mentioning issues that turn out to be spot on.
Yeah, well, who knows? Who knows? But, you know, I think the only thing we can do is keep going, right? I got upset. I spent a few weeks wallowing over it, and then I made a new page and I started over. So,
no, I'm sick for you.
That's
rotten.
we'll get there.
How long were you working on that page?
I want people. I'm sorry?
How long were you working on that page?
I don't know, 3 years.
Oh, oh my God. All your content? All your content?
All the content. Yeah, it's all gone. And I can't even I couldn't use my same name. So I tried to make a new profile with the same name, the same Raw Paw Adventures. As soon as I finished creating it, it was immediately taken down. So now there's like a flag on the name. So,
oh no.
Yeah, so people who are looking for me again won't find me because I have to have a different name. But that's okay. I will find my way. And who knows? Maybe something will be different in 2 weeks. But
who knows? I don't know. I doubt it'll change quick, but you never know. There might be an appeals thing, and it's just like, come on. Yeah. That's brutal. Sick.
Oh gosh. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap us up because I think we definitely ran over. I don't even know how long we've been talking.
I need to.
But I could talk to you forever.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Conor, thank you so much. So you guys can find him. You said drconnorbrady.com, and then you also have dogsfirst.ie, right?
That's
Ireland,
right.
Dogs First
all
Ireland.
My articles are. Yeah.
I'll link all of your
is the videos.
Yeah. I'll link all of your stuff in the show notes. And then,
cool.
you know, just to mention, you know, we talked a lot about metabolic health and, you know, diet and nutrition and stuff like that. But Dr. Conor does have supplements and different, I hesitate to even call it a supplement, but you have a shop and you sell things that are, very helpful. For example, I'm actually using your yeast defeat right now. My golden retriever.
I'm loving that product, by the way.
That is yeasty. So
that's
so
cool.
check out his shop if you he's got all kinds of stuff on there that are really helpful for our dogs. So
that's cool.
So
all right,
I'll have to have you back because I feel like
I'll see you down the road.
We didn't even scratch the surface.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what happens. You know, next time we chat, you know, it'll be interesting to look back on this and go, you know, it is interesting to see how things move on every year. Like, I have no problem with being wrong. I have no problem with turning around and going, oh, that was a mistake. But but you're going to have to get ready to be like that yourself. If you're doing podcasts, you're going to do a lot of talking, and now and again we're going to trip into things. But we're adults and we're talking, and there's nothing wrong with that. We can do it. We can handle ourselves. We don't need to give off our kind of you know, you don't need to worry too much about it. But anyway, look, you know, I love doing the talking, so hopefully I'll be talking to you again down the road. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
Cheers, Cara. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening. Please remember that you are the driving force that helps keep small businesses and platforms like mine running. So if you liked what you heard, please like, share, and most importantly, rate this podcast. It's the only way we can reach more people and spread the word about natural health. None of the conditions discussed or recommendations given are meant to replace the advice of your health provider. So if you have concerns about yourself or your pets, please confer with a human or animal health practitioner. Have a super fantastic day, and I'll see you next week.